Hello, and welcome to the Nonfiction Kidlit Craft Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Kirsten Larson, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Darcy Pattison, an award winning Kidlit author, founder of Mims House Books, and champion of high quality self publishing. Darcy has long been a leader in helping children's book creators bring their work directly to readers. And now she's bringing all of that experience together in her latest project, Publish. Find surprising success self publishing your children's book. We'll talk about how creators can take control of their publishing journey, what it really takes to produce a high quality children's book, and how Darcy is using Kickstarter to get her book into readers' hands. Welcome to the show, Darcy.
Mhm.
Please introduce yourself and your books.
Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm a big fan of your book about writing nonfiction, so it's really great to be here to talk about children's books. So I do write children's books. I've written for many years. I have 8 traditionally published, and then I have about 70 that I've published through my publishing house, mimshousebooks.com. I do.
She's got her fancy background, but that she's showing you her kitty tubers
Yeah,
chapter. Oh, there
okay.
we go. The water kitten.
The Water Kitten, yes. So this is a series of 5 books now. This Water Kitten is the newest book that'll come out next month. And it's about a series of cats who create their own videos and have their own video channels. So they are the Kitty Tuber channel. So that's been a lot of fun. And then I do a lot of science books for kids. So I do anything from 5 to 14 years old, a lot of nonfiction science, and then I also do several series of chapter books and stuff. So in the background, you can see the animal series. These are stories of one animal, not a species, one animal who's done something remarkable and people have named it. Usually there's a scientist backing it up so that I can talk to the scientist and get facts. So yep, I'm doing this wrong.
This is
Nefertiti,
always the challenge on Zoom.
for Nefertiti the Spider Knot, the true story of a spider that went to space. I got to talk to Stephanie, who is the scientist in charge of all live animal experiments on the International Space Station. So that's the kind of thing I do is I really reach out to scientists, get primary source information. And then I have another series, which I'm probably not going to be able to show you. There we
There
go.
it is, erosion.
Yeah, erosion. And these are called Moments in Science. So it's a series of moments when something happened in science and changed it. So this one, erosion, is about the Dust Bowl and the soil scientist who knew what to do when that happened. So those are kind of the main things I do. I do some fiction stories, and I've translated a few of my books.
Bottom line, Darcy has pretty much done it all. And you produce a great blog, Indie Kids Books, or Substack, I should say, cheering on those who are trying to follow a similar path to you. For those who are weighing self publishing versus traditional publishing, can you share what prompted you to make the switch after doing those 8 traditionally published books?
Yes. So I've been teaching for a long time. I teach at a very high level. I did a novel revision retreat. To come to the retreat, you had to have a full draft of a novel. We spent the weekend talking about revising that novel. Kirby Larson came to my retreat, brought her manuscript, revised it. It sold in 11 days flat. And
Wow.
that was Hattie Big Sky, which won a Newbery Honor. So I've been teaching it at a high level for many years, and yet I came to a point where I could not sell another manuscript. I know what people think. You're just not writing good stuff, you know. And in today's crowded market, that's probably reasonable, but I taught long enough. I knew I was writing reasonable things. I just couldn't find the right editor. So it really came down to it was going to be I stopped writing because it was so frustrating, or I took books to market myself. And I decided that I would learn how to take books to market myself and find the right readers. For me, traditional publishing has been a place of scarcity. Indie publishing is a place of abundance.
Well, and I think one thing that I've heard you say before is you talk about it as kind of like betting on yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
do you
Mhm.
believe, how much do you believe in what you're doing and the quality of your work? And if you truly believe, you're putting your money on the line and betting that the readers are going to agree with you because they're the voices that matter.
Well, and it's learning a whole new thing because I was not a business person. I never took an accounting class. I never took a business class. I knew nothing about business. So I had to learn a whole new thing, and I found it's creative in its own way. It's really a lot of fun, and finding ways to put the books in the kids' hands is really a lot of fun for me. But it was difficult. It still is difficult to do those things, but it's worth it because I have ideas, I have stories, I find new stories, every year I find stories that I want kids to read. So it's been a hard journey, but definitely worthwhile.
Well, and now you're trying to make it a little less hard for other people because now you've captured all of this expertise in your new book, Publish, Find Surprising Success Self Publishing Your Children's Book. So, you have been doing this for years. You've been writing your Substack for a couple of years. What prompted you to bring all your expertise together into this book now?
Well, people keep asking me to consult with them or to teach a class, and I do this because I want to write. I want my books to be out there. And so if I get distracted and go try to teach a class, I've done that before, and I teach classes for Highlights Foundation and things like that. I'll still do that, but I don't want to do the intensive classes where I'm mentoring someone. And so doing the blog indiekidsbooks.com was a way for me to put information there and to slowly write the book. So about 50% of the book is drawn either directly or indirectly from that blog. And that's the only way I could have gotten it done. It's like I made all the mistakes, so you don't have to.
Right. Well, and I mean, and how generous because you really go through everything, soup to nuts, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about in a minute. But before we jump into that, in the book, you spend the whole beginning, a good chunk of it, really focusing on the self in self
Mhm.
publishing. It's a lot about a creator's mindset, motivation, and commitment. So, in your view, what type of creator is self publishing a good fit for?
It's not for everyone. Let me just say that right up front. Their traditional publishing will never go away. But for the person who has ideas that need to be expressed in a certain way, or they want something a little faster, or they want some more independence in choosing the illustrators. So for those sorts of things, or for a story that's just odd for whatever reason, I think it's important that people say my ideas are important. My ideas need to be in the world. And I know why publishers have the gatekeepers they have. I know why they do the things they do, and yet it doesn't fit everybody's story. So, there's the story about Scheherazade, who was married to the Arabian emperor, king, whatever they call
Mhm.
them. And she had to tell him a story every night. And in many ways, if we don't have a story, we die.
Right? Yeah.
And I think Scheherazade has always inspired me. I am a storyteller first and foremost. And if the gatekeepers say they can't make money producing my books and putting them in the market, then I'll find a way.
Right.
Hide and watch me. Hide
Yeah.
and watch me. I'll do it.
Well,
Mhm.
and I think part of it is, when you're talking about traditional publishing, as you've said, they are looking for a broad market. They are looking at a book that they can sell to many people. So, if your project is niche in a lot of ways and is maybe going to be really hot with a smaller subset of the market, they may be less interested, but that doesn't mean it can't be a niche where you could do quite well.
Yeah, so I know a lady who does horse books, and she targets those young girls who just go horse crazy. It's a phenomenon that I don't
Right?
It's just a phenomenon, and she goes to all the horse shows. So she's meeting her audience exactly where they are. And that's what you have to think about is what kinds of books do you want to write? Where's your audience? For the right person, self-publishing really is a way to put your books in the hands of the right kids. It's a way for her to find the horse-loving girls, and sell them well. And what I do is I do a lot of science, and so I'm really focusing on elementary school teachers, librarians who say, well, I have to teach about animals. How do I teach the difference between a bird and a mammal and a spider and amphibian, all of those? Wow, my books do it very well for you.
Well, and I was going to say, I think one of your big sellers is it called Clang, the one about sound, right? Which is
Yes.
a tie-in to next generation science standards. And so I think that's helped that particular book be quite popular.
Yes. Clang was interesting because my bachelor's degree is speech pathology. My master's is audiology, which is doing hearing tests and fitting hearing aids. I actually worked at the Arkansas School for the Deaf for a year. So when I saw this story about a sound scientist, it really hit me. I have to do this. But I always go back and I check the next gen science standards to see, is this something that's taught? And sure enough, sound is taught in second and third grade. If I look at all the other books possible, sometimes you have to do market research. If I look at the other books possible on sound, they do a very good job of explaining sound is made by sound waves. You vibrate a string, you vibrate column of air in a organ, things like that. But they are boring.
There's no narrative.
No narrative. So when I tell you about a scientist who went around to courts in Europe to the noblemen and entertained them with his sound experiments, then he went to Napoleon's court and entertained Napoleon and his family, and then Napoleon gave him a grant of 5,000 francs, which is huge grant at the time. So he's a German scientist, but he wrote his basic book on acoustics was written in French because the Napoleon gave him the money. So that's more interesting than the other books possible. So I try to do a book that they don't just want, that they need in order to teach well and to get the kids excited about the topic.
Yeah. Well, and so, we've kind of started talking a little bit about some of these advantages of self publishing today in terms of if you have a book that may not have broad appeal, or if you've been running into roadblocks in the market, this is a way to get your stories into the world. What are some of the other advantages today, especially for children's book creators?
Well, speed. So I can find a topic, write the story, get it illustrated, and have it on the market within a year. Um,
Wow.
my friend just sold a book, and it will be a 2028 book. So the list is just full for that publisher. There's just not anything else she can do. And then again, it's that scarcity versus abundance for me. Traditional publishing, I might be able to do one book a year. That's scarce to me these days. I can do 5 books a year easily. And because I write the story and then the illustrator's doing their work. So while the illustrator's working, I can work on writing another story. So, and then finally, the money is there. Frankly, I make much more money than I ever would make doing it through traditional publishers because I keep 100% of the profit. I'm taking 100% of the risk, but I also get 100% of the profit. And if I do it well, then the profit does come in slowly but surely.
Well, and I think I'll try to find the link for our audience, but I've seen salary surveys which show, like, I think within the first 2 or 3 years, traditional authors are making more, but once you get beyond like 3 years on, self-published authors tend to make more overall because they are
Yes.
keeping a larger percentage of their royalties.
Well, and also I'm building a backlist. So
Right.
I'm building my intellectual property into something that is significant, and the backlist is significant at this point. I have 70 books out. So even if one book doesn't do very well that year, another book will come up and sell really well. So it's not that I'm relying on one book or 5 books or 10 books. I have a backlist that really does well.
Hey, nonfiction kidlit creators, want to go beyond the podcast? Join Reimagine Insiders. It's the creative community for children's nonfiction writers ready to level up their craft and career. You'll get insider craft sessions, behind the scenes peeks at my process, first dibs on classes, and a supportive crew who get what you're doing. Visit writers.kirstenwlarson.com to learn more and join us. Well, and I think there are a couple of points about that. I mean, one is you own the intellectual property. So now you can license it in different ways, right? You can
Yes.
license ebook versions to Epic, which is a major children's reading platform and you can
Yes.
license foreign rights.
Or Nefertiti actually sold to a company that is teaching reading, online, and they just wanted the text, they didn't want the images. So, I licensed just the text for 5 years, and they came back recently and renewed that license. So, it's $1,000 a year, but if you have several books doing licensing things like that, it's great. And I just sold a 9-book series, My Moments in Science, will be translated into Chinese.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. As an author who's seen some of the foreign rights deals that my publisher does on my royalty statements, I'm guessing your share is you're getting significantly more because you're handling the whole thing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. For my traditionally published books, I might get $500 or something for a foreign rights deal. And I keep all of the profit myself. Yes.
Right. And then talking about advantages, I think it's interesting to point out that a lot of your books are series. You have your animal series, you have your moments in science, you have your kitty tubers. So in terms of marketing, a lot of us in traditional publishing, we're trying to market among different publishers. Our books don't necessarily have a cohesive theme. You can kind of concentrate your marketing and it sells a lot of books because they are in these series.
Exactly. Yes. So Jeremy, the English Garden Snail just came out. And when I market it, I market the whole series. So yes, it is much easier to have everything from one publisher. I do know very lucky people who have had a relationship with editors for 20 years and all their books are with that one house. But I think in today's market, it's very rare.
Yeah, I think it's changing too. And I feel like especially for nonfiction, a lot of us go to different publishers, maybe even more than fiction.
Yeah, or there's the small educational presses, which either are work for hire or they just don't pay much. Yeah.
Right. So you've taught this over and over again. And so what are some of the biggest misconceptions that children's book creators have about self-publishing?
One book will make you rich.
Wouldn't it be nice?
And that does happen, but those are unicorns, and it's just so rare, you can't count on that. You really need a backlist. So if you start self-publishing, you really need to go into it with the mindset that you're going to publish a lot. So for the first 5 years I did my company, I just put my head down and worked. I just produced books I loved that no one else would let me do, but I believed in and I thought would work. And then I sort of, after 5 years, looked around and went, "Wow, I've done something here, and I've gotten starred reviews, and I've gotten NSTA Outstanding Science Trade Books of the Year, and I've done something remarkable. Let me keep doing this because it's fun." So you can do that. It does take work, and then the other misconception I see sometimes for people trying to come into the children's field is the idea that, it's just kids. It doesn't matter, if it's that good or not. I can get by and it'll sell. And I'll just tell you that the bar is set very high. The standard has to be very high, or your books will not sell.
Well, and I think in some ways you have an even higher bar because you
Mm.
are trying to explain especially with your nonfiction, scientific concepts. It has to be in an interesting way that connects with kids. And you have to figure out how to filter all this information and make it kid appropriate. So it's in a lot of
And
ways, it
then
would be easier to write it for adults.
and then figure out all the business part to get that book into the kid's hand.
Right. Right.
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
it's not easy, but you can do it.
Well, and so that brings me to my next question, which is your new book, Publish, goes deep into the how to's of self publishing. I mean, you have sections about contracts and accountings and how to do your metadata. So, when people come to self publishing for the first time, what are some of the aspects that they find the most daunting?
When I came to it first time, all that business stuff was just foreign to me. Again, I never had a business class. I never took accounting. Accounting just killed me for years. But I think probably one of the biggest ones is, if you're going to do a picture book, is just the layout and design. Just how do you work with the illustrators? It's crucial, picture books have to have illustrations, and you have to learn to be an art director. And if you have no background in art, then it's extremely hard. You really need to develop some sort of sense of what style of art you like, and or hire someone to do your art directing for you. Yeah.
Right. And in the book, you talk about how to find and hire and write
Yes.
contracts when you're working with artists.
I
And I,
think that's probably one of the biggest sections of the book, and it's because it's so important.
whenever I think about like, oh, how would it be to self-publish, a picture book or a graphic novel?
Mhm.
It is the art piece that I'm like, oh wow.
So
That would be hard.
this may sound crazy, but I'm a quilter.
Oh,
And, I was doing art quilts, not just the traditional, quilting that you would see. So I took classes on, how to design an art quilt, all of that sort of thing, and when I came over to children's books, I went, "Oh, it's kind of the same thing." You have to have a focal point. So, for example, on the wisdom book, yes, over here, illustrated by Kitty Harville, she is a fabulous artist, mostly in watercolor, and she just filled up that page with that head of the albatross. And that made the rest of the series easy because it's always the face of the animal, always fills up the page. But that's what quilting taught me, is to fill up that page. So in quilting, I actually had a quilt in a show at the Arkansas Art Center. I am a cover girl. I had a quilt on a cover of a magazine. So I was doing quilting at a pretty high level. And so all of that artistic sense came over to picture books. I couldn't have done it if I wasn't doing that. So I think if you're doing picture books, you need to find an artistic sense somewhere of what it is you want, what looks right to you, what does not look right to you.
which is so interesting because for most of us who have done traditional publishing, that we're often told you're selling the text,
Yes,
and now
hands
the
off.
the editor and the art director, they may ask you, we're thinking about this artist, what do you think of this artist, or send us your ideas. But in terms of that day-to-day work with the illustrator, that is happening with the art director and then the editor, and you might get input on a dummy. We're sort of trained to leave it as open as we can for the illustrator so that they can bring their talents to the story.
Yes. Yeah, so it's very, very different if you're doing picture books, because you really need to dig into the art directing and learn what your tastes are, and what sorts of books you want. Yeah.
So, would you recommend for people trying to develop their visual sensibility, would studying picture books like on an artistic level as mentor text be a way to start, or there?
Anything you can do, go to art museums, just find a style that you like, try to analyze, why does that work for you? Why do you like that? And then always, always, always in picture books, you have to understand the structure is 32 pages. And within that, you've got these double page spreads, but you could also have spots. You could also have illustration on one page and text on the other. So there are lots of options. So look at those sorts of things and really study the picture books that are out there, and just a history of art, if nothing else.
Yeah, so developing your visual sense, I think, is really key.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, aside from developing your art directing skills, what are some other ways that authors who are looking to self-publish books can make sure that they are a high enough quality that they can get into schools and libraries?
Children's books are literature. And so go take a children's literature class. Read books on award-winning lists. I still do this all the time. I look at the NSTA Outstanding Science Trade books and I go, why did this book win and this book didn't? You're just looking to see what it is that your audience is looking for, and what are they valuing, and try to push your book that direction. So reading award-winning books is absolutely one of the strategies. I think taking classes is really important. We're recording this in July, and I just am teaching a class for the Highlights Foundation on writing picture books. So I'm talking about fiction picture books, but also bringing in the nonfiction. So there are many places to take classes, but absolutely do that. And then a critique group is really important, especially at first. Someone else who's working in the field who has a sense of what's selling and not selling, what quality means. Even if their writing isn't quite there yet, you're helping each other reach for that level. So there's a lot of things you can do, but it may take you, 5 years to write a manuscript that's really publishable. In self-publishing, you can do that minimally. There's a business term, minimally viable book. And I'm not sure you really need to do that though, because I think you really need to wait till there's a higher quality one.
Well, and the interesting thing, especially if you're focusing on picture books or even chapter books, which are still fairly short, eh, they're short. So if this one's
Mm.
not working, you can set it aside and now you can work on something else. And then you may get an idea for that one you've set aside and go back to it. And now it's a much better book. So there's no real need to rush it to market. It's not like you've written a 100,000 word novel and it's going to take you another year.
Yeah, so it sort of depends on your writing style. I know Tammy Sauer from Oklahoma only works on one story at a time, but I can't do that. I have several stories going at any one time because one is in research phase, one is in illustration phase, one's, at different phases. So I'm working on several at any moment.
Well, and I think that is the only way that I can work on more than one manuscript too is if they are in different phases. I can really
Yeah.
only be in the drafting phase, the first draft phase
Yes.
for one, but if it's tweaks to another, researching something else,
Yes.
sometimes when there's
Yeah.
enough time I can do it.
Yes. So I may be researching one while I'm revising one, that sort of thing. Yeah.
And remind me how many years you've been doing this, the self-publishing part.
13 years this year.
So 13 years and you said like 70 titles?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I do 4 or 5 a year. Next year, I only have 2 coming out so far. I may have another one soon, but it just depends on the year.
Well, and so once a book is published, how are you getting those books into the hands of readers? So what strategies have worked for you?
Yeah, so the most frustrating thing is when someone comes to me and says, "I just got my shipment of 10,000 books. Now what do I do?"
Right.
So they got the cart before the horse. They did the writing, they did the illustrating, they did the printing, and so I do not do offset printing most of the time. I do print on demand, which means the book lives as a file on a printer's server until there's an order. So I sell first, then print. I choose to do distribution through print on demand. That would be KDP, Amazon's uh, publishing platform, and Ingram. Ingram is really crucial because Ingram gets you into the general library and bookstore market. If you're in Ingram, they'll be sold anywhere. And then I also choose to do Lulu, which is the back end of my Shopify store. So I'm doing all of those. But to market it, I'm doing first of all long before the book is published, I do all the metadata. I can't tell you how crucial metadata is. If you go on Google to search for my name, it must come up.
Right.
It must come up for those topics that I write about. And the only way to do that is to have all the information about the book, the title, the subtitle, the author, the publication date, the size, the cover files, all of that is called metadata. And you have to have all of that out there three months before your book is ever published, or you're not going to do well. And that's moving now to 4 months before,
Oh,
because so many
interesting.
of the review journals want everything 4 months ahead. So I'm sending to the review journals, I'm sending out metadata, I'm doing all of that 4 months ahead. And then I'm searching for the right audience for 4 months before the book ever comes out. I'm looking for those people interested in what I've written about, which means I go to a lot of school and library conferences.
Okay.
So I just went to the Arkansas Association of Instructional Media, that's the school librarians. And then I also went to the Arkansas Literacy Association, that's the reading teachers. Yeah.
And when you go, are you presenting? Are you
Mhm.
having a booth for your publishing house? Are you doing both?
Depends. I can speak, I can do a booth, I can do, depends on the conference and my life schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
Want to write a nonfiction picture book, but don't know where to start? Check out my self paced online course, Crafting Your Nonfiction Picture Book, designed just for beginners. In 4 weeks, I'll guide you from story spark to first draft with short, actionable lessons that fit into your busy schedule. You'll learn how to research, structure, and write nonfiction stories that kids and editors will love. Grab your free preview at writers.kirstenwlarson.com and take the first step toward your nonfiction picture book today. We've kind of shared a lot of really great information here.
Mhm.
Some people may be inspired to think about self-publishing. So, if somebody is curious and they're not sure where to start, what is one small step that they could take right now to get started?
Write a story.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I know many, many people who say, "I want to publish, I want to write," and yet they never put words on paper. And then, of course, they're not gonna sell a book because they haven't put words on paper. So it is daunting to face that blank page, but you must write. And that's basically I'm a writer. I mean, I do the self-publishing, I do the business, but I'm basically a writer. If I'm not writing, I have nothing to sell. So write a story and then find a way to figure out if that's good. Read other books, find a critique group, take a class. I still tremble every time someone reads my story before it's actually published. Actually, I tremble when they read it after it's published.
Sure.
My ego is still very fragile. I know it's hard, but you just have to ask someone else to read it because books are you writing, trying to put that idea into the heads of the reader. And if you don't make that connection, then you're just never going to sell a book. You have to
Uh,
put it out.
well, and it's sort of this interesting intersection of art
Mhm.
and business, which is, it's our creative expression, but in order for it to sell, it has to speak to readers. And so you have to test that out, sort of like market testing.
Mhm, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I don't always, find a kid and read it to him, but if there's a kid around and I read it to him, yeah, absolutely, it helps because 'cause
Yeah.
they'll always find something that I missed.
Right. So you are doing a Kickstarter campaign with Publish. Some people may be familiar with Kickstarter, others may not. But for those who have not heard this term Kickstarter before, tell us a little bit about what the platform is and then how you're using it to bring Publish to readers.
So Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform. There are many crowdfunding platforms. A lot of people know about GoFundMe. That's when there's a disaster that happens in a family and they ask friends and family to help them pay the hospital bill or rebuild a house or whatever it is. Kickstarter is very different. Kickstarter requires you to have a product. You have to have something physical that you're going to put in the hands of people. And so they're not just a generous donor, they are a backer of your project. So they want to back the project so they will get something. In the case of authors, they're going to get a book. It may be a paperback book or a hardcover book. They allow you to do audiobooks or ebooks, but most people will do either hardcover or paperback book. So it's a very different platform than I'm not asking for a charity. I'm giving you a great product. And the reason I'm doing it is because in the indie world, it is a way to do pre-orders. So pre-orders is a way to sell a book before the publication date. So Publish actually comes out in January of 2026. But before then, you can get the book early in November if you back my Kickstarter project. So there may be some extra things. I'm adding in some extra checklists. A lot of times it's a special edition, so there will be an extra checklist in this one. And then I have 4 other books I've written on the writing process. So you have an opportunity to bundle those together to get what you need for your writing career. Yeah.
And then from the business perspective, talking about pre-orders, do funders pay first and then you're able to use those funds to produce the book, or how does that work exactly?
So they recommend now that you don't do it to get the money to fund uh,
Ah, okay.
an illustrator. They recommend that you have the book totally finished, and in this case, it's totally finished, as are the other 4 books that are part of the project. They're all finished, and what it does though is it does help me recoup some of my expenses. it does help me get into the black a lot faster. So if, for example, I had spent $5,000 on an illustrator and the project brings in $5,000, then, I'm in the black already. So that's what you hope happens, but what you're hoping really is that this is a way to actually kickstart your book. So you are seeding the market with people who are very interested in your topic. They want it early. They like it so much they want it early and they're very passionate about it. So they get it early and then they're telling their friends and family, "You got to get this book. It's so great. It's going to really change your life." My book might. And then you hope that you're seeding the market that way also. And then you hope that a lot of those people will review the book on different platforms.
The Kickstarter doesn't go live until September 15th, but you already have like a site up where people can sign up to be notified
Yes.
when the Kickstarter goes live so that they can back your project. And I should say, I am signed up and I am prepared to back the project. So hopefully some of the listeners will join
Thank you.
in.
Thank you.
It's really great. I've read it. So, all right. Well, is there anything else that you want to share about self-publishing that I have not covered that you think people need to know?
I just want to say your stories matter. They really do. Your voice is important. You see the world in a different way from me, from anybody else. And we need those views in our world of literature. We need those options. Whether you find 1,000 readers or 10,000 readers or 100,000 readers, that connection is really important. So I really believe that self-publishing is a way for people to bring their passions, their their desires, their themes, their stories to other people. I think it's really important.
That's a wonderful place to leave. I love that. So, where can people find you online and buy your books?
So Mims House Books, MIMSHOUSE, books.com is where all of my self-published books live, and you can buy them there. They are also distributed widely. You can buy them at any of your favorite platforms worldwide. And then I also blog about independent publishing at indiekidsbooks.com. I do have a website, darcypattison.com. You can find some information there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Darcy, for coming on and sharing your expertise about self publishing and setting up your own publishing company. I hope you've inspired some folks to give it a try.
Thanks. It's been great.
Want to learn more about Darcy's book, Publish, and her Kickstarter campaign launching September 15th? Head over to kickstarter.com/projects/Darcy Pattison/publish to support the project. Join me next time when I talk with nonfiction superstar Melissa Stewart, author of 5 Kinds of Nonfiction and tons of children's nonfiction books. We'll talk about the children's nonfiction landscape and much more. See you next time.